right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to, I don't even know what this is called anymore, but it's still always going to be Beer with the Boys because I love the alliteration. I've got John Hill, who is a funeral director over, everybody thinks you're just from like the deep South, but you're like the deep East South, deep Southeast. Which way is that? Over, are you in North Carolina or South Carolina? You're in
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yep.
I had someone ask me last week if you're in Tennessee. So we were messaging about that, but he's a funeral director, mortician. We've got Ryan and Brian from, and I always point, and I know I'm pointing the wrong way, from Undertaking, the podcast, funeral directors and embalmers down in Indiana joining us. So welcome everybody. This is an impromptu. John Hill says, hey guys, it is National Beer Day and it's National Burrito Day. So we need to film. So we are going to shoot 2, maybe 3 episodes back to back. Some quick ones for you guys, having some beer. My favorite is Leinenkugel. It's like my dream to go up to Wisconsin to the Leinenkugel. Like,
yes. Nice.
Hey, Leinenkugel, send me a case. So that's what we got going, and we're gonna do some random topics here. I'm on call, so I keep checking my phone just to make sure no one has called.
Oh, hey, by the way, John and Kari, I thought it needs to be known that I am not on call tonight.
Live it up.
Oh, I will be indulging, absolutely. So, good times, good things.
Brian, are you having a glass of tea?
I have got my tumbler full of water.
Wow.
That's how I roll.
I have this is the last of my gallon of water for the day I have to drink. So I'm dual hydrating as well.
Yeah, you got to dehydrate and then rehydrate.
That's right. It's a process. It's a process. Well, let's dive in. So this one's going to be super easy. Someone said, what the F moments that we have encountered over the years? So if I say, what have been your biggest WTF moments? Like what pops in your mind as being one of your main ones, whether with a body, at a funeral, working with a family, where you go literally, what the, when you
I can start off.
Get it.
This has been my worst fear for years. Brian and I have talked about this time and time again. At the funeral homes I work at, there's 7 funeral directors. So, I mean, there's a plentiful or a bountiful amount of professionalism and funeral service there. But we all help out on each other's funerals. I mean, it's not, obviously you've got the funeral director in charge. And then, if I'm at the funeral home that day, obviously I'm helping that funeral director with whatever it is they're doing, whatever they need, yada, yada. It's kind of a give and take. Well, my worst fear, and it didn't happen to me, but I was a part of fixing the fear, is forgetting to order the vault, the tent set up, all that. Okay. And, I think people have to understand, well, they don't have to understand it, but this does happen. When you're dealing with 5 to 6 different families all in one week, sometimes things can get missed and it sucks. It shouldn't happen. It happens. Mistakes are mistakes and it happens. That's all I'm going to say there. But what I will say is this director, I remember I'm walking to the front of the funeral home through the hallway, and this gentleman doesn't run at all. And I've never seen him sprint back. We're getting ready to dismiss the service. And he goes, I forgot to order the vault and the tent set up. And I said, what are you serious? And he goes, yes. He goes, we're getting ready to dismiss. And I said, okay. I said, don't worry about it. I said, I'll deal with it. I said, you just, move slowly, dismiss slowly. I said, give me at least a little bit of time here. So I go back to our garage and I'm like, how am I going to fix this? Because, we're having a procession out to the cemetery none of that stuff's there. So what are we going to do? So I ended up getting a church truck. All right. Grave was dug, all that good stuff. Okay. I ended up getting a church truck. I grabbed 6 chairs and then one of our, really nice, in so many words, tents. And I grabbed one of our cremation technician and I said, listen, put an overcoat on. You're coming with me. It's raining out, by the way. Okay. We go out to the cemetery. We put this tent up. All right. And it's a nice tent. It looks like any other tent, like you would have it, your company that does the vault. Looks like any other tent like that. So there was really no rhyme or reason as to, it looks so different than any other thing we've been on. The family didn't know any difference, yada, yada. But I'll never forget, we finally got the tent up, church truck set, everything was ready, and the funeral coach is pulling into the cemetery. And for me, that was can you bleep stuff here, Kari, or can I say what I want to say or no?
Why don't you muddle?
Yeah, this isn't podcast world. So, okay. I'll just say this. That was that was a WTF moment. Because, when that funeral director came around the corner, you could see it in his eyes. And as a funeral director, that is one of our worst fears, man. And that's the stuff that Brian talks about, waking him up at night, wakes me up at night. But, luckily we all work together. We try to figure it out. We got it figured out, it's still done professionally. Family didn't know the difference whatsoever. We ended up obviously burying the next day because we had to get a vault and all that stuff. But nobody was upset. Everything was good and everything went as planned. But those are those moments sometimes too within funeral service where you've got to think on your feet and think on your feet quickly, and it happens, folks. I'm not going to bust chops. I mean, it is what it is. I've done things that are kind of, WTF with certain people, but it happens. It's my worst fear. But that was a moment like, oh man, we don't have time for this. How do we fix it?
But then you turn it into what WTF to I'm the shizzle moment. But you turn it into.
I wish you could bleep stuff.
I know. Well, and I don't think it matters if we curse, but I try not to curse on my videos.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to curse on your videos. You come to the podcast, it is what it is there.
Yeah, I let it fly. But all right, what, John or Brian, you got a WTF moment that stands out?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So basically I have 2, but the first one was after I had gotten back from being with Bernie Fountain for a week and I did his post-mortem reconstructive surgery, not his big old international conference, but I did one of his labs and things. And I was just taught some things that was mind-blowing about cases that you don't think can recover, things that you don't think can be put back together. And so I'm thinking to myself, sorry, if there's noises, I'm at a restaurant, okay? And so I got my favorite burrito over here. Yeah, it's National Burrito Day and Beer Day. So anyway, got to my favorite place. Anyhow, so I get back from this conference and I'm thinking to myself, all the cases that he showed us and all the things we can do. And plus we actually did actual labs on those techniques of how to put someone back together reconstructive wise and restorative art wise. I'm literally thinking to myself, I hope I never get any one of these cases because number one, something bad and tragic has to happen to someone for this to happen. But number two, it's such a tedious and crazy process, but it's worth it for a family to have a viewing. Barely a week goes by and we get a family that just walks into the funeral home, and it's not just 1 or 2 people. It's like a plethora, an entourage. There's like 20 people that gather together, and they said they need to see someone, their loved one has died. And so I'm there and I'm the one that meets them. We have to go inside of our large community room because our small arrangement room couldn't hold them. And so I'm sitting there and I could tell that the next of kin was the wife and she was very young. So I knew something tragic has happened. And the person is at the ME's office that has died. So I get up to try to get some paperwork, and I let our admin know what's going on at the front desk. And she says, yeah, he's at the ME's office and the ME's going to be calling here shortly. And I said, okay. So I go in the other room, try to get some paperwork together, and the admin comes up to me and talks to me, says, the ME just called, and by the way, he has been decapitated, the decedent has. So as soon as I hear that, I'm like, okay. And so I go back and gather information because the family's already told me they want a burial, they want an open viewing casket, and the wife has been emphatic to me, can I see my husband? Can we see him? And the religion that they were part of, it's a big deal to where the casket has to be open. And so that was my WTF moment. That was like, okay, what am I going to do? And especially when I got the body in and how everything turned out, it was very accurate. I mean, but we were able to put him back together. Long story short, he looked good in the casket, I thought, but it doesn't matter what I think, because as my first preceptor taught me, you can look at a body and think they look good, but it doesn't matter. I remember he would tell me, what does the family say? What does the family say? And I'll never forget when I first embalmed with my preceptor, I said, man, I think they look good. And he looked at the body, looked back at me, looked at the body, looked back at me and said, we'll see what the family says. And so that was my thought process. What's the family going to say? And I'll never forget Kari, Brian, and Ryan walking in with the family. And it was such a tense moment for me. And it was such a hard, difficult moment for this family because the wife knew what had happened. I mean, he got hit by a truck, and sadly, one part of his body was like 60 yards from the other part of his body, the way that happened.
Wow.
She knew what had happened. The son knew what had happened. The other son just knew that his dad had died. He didn't know the details. And I'll never forget walking all three of them in. And when they saw the casket, their faces were puzzled at first, like, what is this? And I was like, I'm trying to read them. I'm like, are they not happy? What's going on? And it come to my realization at that moment, they were looking for the trauma. They were looking for what was wrong, and they couldn't see it. And they looked back at me with tears, and they were just very thankful. And I'll never forget, they both just looked at the casket, and then they just kneeled down at the front of the casket. So for me, that was what that moment was for me. And it's a little bit more somber, a little bit more serious moment, but that was mine when you comes to my mind. And it's just amazing how as soon as I get back from Bernie Fountains, learning how to do that reconstructive stuff, I get a case like that. And then not even a month later, they're picking up the music. I may have to tell them to turn it down. So anyway, but that was my moment.
That's awesome. Your little magical wizardry you did. That's.
Yep. And they got it going. I'll step aside here just for a second. Okay.
You're fine. I love it. All right, Brian, do you have one?
Yeah, of course I do. The first thing that comes to my mind, I will totally never forget this guy. The hell is he laughing about? I'm going to walk it back to the first year of COVID. And it's in the first, I'd say probably 9 months of COVID. And I had a middle-aged man who died of COVID, and he wouldn't have been dead if it wasn't for COVID. And our state had put in the mandates, signs up, masks on, all that stuff, social distancing. So I had signs everywhere. And this guy, he died from COVID, and people were walking in the door. And I mean, it wasn't everyone, but it was a lot. They walk in the door and they're like, we really got to wear a mask. And I'm like, why the hell do you think you're here? It was a massive WTF moment that, like, you're here because of COVID. We have precautions in place because of COVID, and you're going to stand there and try to challenge me. And it was like, WTF. I mean, for sure. Like, I didn't have any major arguments. I just looked at these people like, you're a moron. It was what it was.
Brian, didn't you have somebody that came in and asked you if it was safe to come in?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I had someone, I opened the door. We're a funeral home that opens doors. Opened the door, and this person looked at me and they go, is it safe to come in? I went, no. And they looked at me and they're like, what do you mean? I went, no, it's not safe to go anywhere. Like, I cannot guarantee you your safety. You're welcome to come in at your own. And I literally said, you're welcome to come in at your own risk. We have, and that was about as much of the conversation as it was. You're welcome to come in at your own risk. I'm wearing a mask. We got the hand sanitizer everywhere. I mean, looking back 2 years ago, a lot of things seemed a little silly, but back then we didn't know. I mean, it was really serious.
Exactly.
So, we were just following the protocols put down for us, but like people wanted to challenge me. And I was like, just like, this wasn't someone who died at 98 years old. It was someone who shouldn't be dead. And you're wanting to fight with me, the funeral director. And I was like, just either come in or don't, just stuff it. But anyway,
I hadn't even thought of some of the COVID moments, because there's times, I mean, you sit down to make arrangements and people would sit down and they'd take off their masks, even though they're supposed to have them on. They'd be like, yeah, I tested positive, but it's fine. And you're like, why are you sitting here in front of me telling me this now while you're spewing those moments? Or the person who says, but I got vaccinated and I tested positive, so we're all fine. And I'm like, come on, logic here. Like, this is a big building full of people and everybody's now exposed because of you, like crazy. I didn't even think of the COVID when it came to this. That was good. The good pull. I think about body stuff like hair growing out of a belly button, or one of the
I got one.
Do you? So
yeah.
Creepiest.
Oh, yeah.
I had 5 hairs growing straight out of his thumb, like straight at you. I don't know. It seemed it had to be like skin from somewhere else, but it wasn't.
Oh boy.
Hairs, and they creeped me out.
Oh, I had clothing. Clothing is brought to us often.
Yeah.
I was looking through the clothing and getting ready to put some shoes on. I look in the shoe. A mouse in the shoe.
Living or dead?
Quite dead. And I thought to myself, is this supposed to go? And is that pet mouse? I don't know. Do I bring it up? Be like, do I embarrass the family and say, there's a mouse in Joe's shoe? Or do I just put the shoe on with the mouse? And these thoughts crossed my mind. Saying, WTF.
And we're all wondering, what did you do?
I don't remember. I don't think the mouse went. I really don't. I don't think. 100%. 100%.
I think there's moments too when we get these decedents into the, where we're doing the preparation work, where you'll see and you'll find something that you wouldn't have ever thought. Brian, deceased animals at times, depending. Sometimes I think how big the patient is, or not the patient, but the decedent is. You can run into that very unique situations where you can't. It's just unbelievable. You know what I mean? What you're seeing, it can be unbelievable at times. So, Brian, I get it.
If it was Ballard, I would have put the mouse in his pocket. 100%. If it was Ballard,
sticking up the top, right out of his shirt, the little nose, just
waving.
We had a lady once, and she died in the bathtub, and her dog was in the room with her. And while he was trying to get out, he ended up hanging himself in her bra because he was jumping at the door. Little dog her bra was hanging on the back of the door, as women do. Ended up choking in the bra, hanging on the back of the door, and she's dead in the bathtub. Yeah.
WTF.
That'd be a crazy scene to walk into.
Yeah. So one of the biggest, and I don't know why this popped in my mind when I thought WTF moments, there was a funeral for a little boy who died, and somebody got up at his funeral and says, yeah, well, I have to tell everybody what his nickname was, and it was Monkey Nuts. And I'm out running the sound, and I was like, what did he just say? And he went on and on at the little boy's funeral about this nickname. And I was like, please stop saying Monkey Nuts. Please. Like, please stop. It was like it
Brian?
would end and you wanted to like run in and like tackle him and make it go. It was bad.
Brian, has there been anything during a service? I mean, you got more years than me. Has there been anything during service you just been like,
Yes.
either it stops now or I have to go up to the front of the chapel?
I've got two, I guess, to your specific question. I've had one where the minister was using the wrong name, and I'm in the back of the chapel doing some massive funeral director gymnastics. Like it was some major mime work. Like, I mean, like I'm trying to land the airplane and they're not even connecting with the control tower. And finally the family, I don't know, after 5-6 minutes finally said, it's not Anne, it's Mary or whatever it was.
Oh
It
my
was a lady.
gosh.
And I'm like going, damn. I have had someone pass out during a funeral that was overdosing on heroin. And not exactly overdosing. They just had a little too much. They did a header right in the chapel, literally face first, and then stayed in that position. And I'm starting to walk over to help. And then like the friend who I thought was disabled was on like a walker. It was like a 25-year-old dude on a cane. And that dude, he moved across the chapel like Superman. I was like, whoa. I mean, beat me there. And I'm like, okay, let's see what's going on here. And then they get him up and they get him kind of coming to. But that's something funeral directors are starting to see. I don't know if I want to say starting to see. We have seen it over the last 10 years. We've seen it a lot. And we've kind of got a no tolerance position, I'd say, within the last 6-7 years at the funeral home. You pass out in the car in the parking lot, we're calling the ambulance. And that's something that's happened.
Yeah.
And I find this happens at funerals of those who have overdosed, who have overdosed, and their friends come in, their friends are having a hard time. They're kind of in the same type of situation to where they're not dealing with their substance properly. And, if you're going to, we're not going to let that go anymore. We're going to call for help. I ran out of patience. It's like, you know what? Enough of these young funerals. It's not going to happen on my watch. So, I've had cops called a couple times now.
Hey, has anybody ever had anybody actually go into cardiac arrest during a funeral?
Yes, but I missed it.
Not me.
Since you asked, sorry, Kari, like Ryan and I are like taking over the show. No, I missed this.
What are you doing, John? What's up over there?
Yeah, I know. Like Ryan, we'll shut up here in a minute.
That's right.
We had someone go into cardiac arrest, and my brother, who is a fireman, probably some EMT qualifications. He started doing the old CPR, and they came to. But he did that on his funeral. I missed the whole thing, but it happened.
Well, I had talking about that. I didn't have anybody go into cardiac arrest, but there was one service where I was officiating the funeral, and it was very hot last summer, and literally 3 people passed out at the very same time on the funeral.
Gosh.
And it was a graveside, actually. It was a graveside. And I just try to keep my composure and just stay locked in. And the other funeral director on the service was trying to attend to everybody because one had passed out over there, another had passed out over there, one had passed out over yonder. And I told everybody in the audience, tried to lighten the mood. I said, well, everybody's passing out. I don't want the rest of you to pass out. So I think this is my time to wind it down,
Wow.
But I've had something like that happen.
That's a lot.
It's a quick.
I tell you what, you probably just serenading them and the spirit hit them and there they go.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah.
Monsignor over here, Benny Hinn. Did you put your hand out like that? Did they fall because you?
And what I said was let the bodies hit the floor and whoosh. That's what happened.
Wow.
That's a great way to end.
Yeah,
there it is.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, thank you guys for sharing some WTF moments. Obviously, I think we encounter so many of them in all the areas between the funerals and meeting families and bodies and everything, but it's fun to share a few of them. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks, John, Ryan, Brian. Check out Ryan and Brian on Undertaking the podcast on any podcast platform. No Knucklehead Embalmers. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Happy National Beer and Burrito Day.